Of course, I'm Austin. I'm a freshman in civil engineering at UC Berkeley, and I'm a member of the design team on Cal ITE's transportation competition team.
Hi, my name is Danny Nguyen. I am it's really disorienting. Um, I'm currently a chem major, but I'm trying very hard to switch into civil engineering because I'm now realizing that's what I really want to do. I was uh, part of the planning team this year, so I made most of the designs you'll see on the presentation.
What year are you, Danny?
Oh, I'm a freshman.
Great.
All right. So just an overview of our project. We were given the project area of Logan, Utah, primarily Main Street, but also the surrounding areas, and a citywide scope with emphasis on certain key intersections to be improved. The intersections highlighted here are Main Street with 400 North, 300 North, 200 North, and with US 89. So we were told to focus on safety and traffic improvements primarily. So these are just some aerial photos of the existing conditions. This is kind of what we're working with here. All right, so we're going to begin with some safety analysis. First, we have the crashes per year in Logan, Utah, rated by severity. And on the 5-year period from 2018 to 2023, the lowest, the no injury or property damage only least severe accidents increased fairly steadily. However, the other kinds of accidents did not increase. They simply held steady. So obviously we want to decrease all kinds of accidents. But so far it seems that while accidents have been increasing, actual injury to pedestrians, bikers, and drivers has not been increasing. So at Main Street and 400 North, we can see that the greatest number of interactions are front to rear, because we believe this is because the wide driving lanes do not incentivize cars to slow down at all, and therefore they're more likely to rear end one another entering the collision. But there are also significant side swipe and angle collisions that cannot be dismissed. Then at Main Street and 200 North, we again have lots of front to rear collisions, but also angle and side swipe collisions. We believe that the wide turning lanes and the fact that turning right-hand turns stay very close to the sidewalk is causing danger towards pedestrians and bicyclists when cars make right-hand turns. Meanwhile, Main Street with US 89 actually has very few accidents and 0 serious incidents in the entire time period we were able to look at. So as a result, although 400 North and 200 North, we definitely want to make some improvements on. US Route 89, we actually made minimal design changes. We believe that this current intersection design is actually doing a fairly good job. So our overall project goals, first of all, under safety, we want to prevent left-hand turn and rear-end collisions. We want to reduce speeding and unsafe driving, which causes front-to-rear collisions. And we want to just generally improve safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. And then with regards to traffic and road capacity, we want to reduce traffic congestion, improve transit capacity and reliability in the entire region. And then, of course, there's environmental concerns. We believe that if we encourage active transportation and increase the transit mode share, we can decrease the environmental impact of traveling in Logan, Utah.
All right. So the main idea of our project is to improve safety and capacity while doing so sustainably and at a low cost for the city. So one of the big ideas of our project is to create bus lanes in the current shoulders along Main Street. So as you can see, this is the current condition right at the top. There's big shoulders on either side of the road. And our idea is to replace that with bus lanes. So in tandem, we're going to condense the bus routes along high frequency corridors and along Main Street to allow them to utilize these new bus lanes. And we're also going to create new bus shelters and other pieces of bus infrastructure. And that's what we think is going to be best to increase corridor capacity along Main Street for the lowest possible cost. Another big principle is our safety improvements. So we're improving safety with narrowed lane widths, and we're decreasing the number of lanes at certain points, and we're also reducing access at certain points. And another big thing we're doing is creating improved pedestrian facilities. So we're creating curb extensions, bulb outs, pedestrian refuge islands, and improved daylighting. So here's a sort of like a diagram that shows some of the intersection design elements. So as you can see, we have this is not one of the actual intersections, but this just kind of shows the main ideas of what we're trying to improve. So we have pedestrian refuge islands. As you can see, we have tightened roads with curb extensions. We have bike lanes, and you can also see the bus shelters and bus lanes there. And the third big idea of our project is bike network improvements. So we're not going to have any bikes on Main Street just because of how we designed it and the safety factors. But we're going to create parallel bike corridors and slow streets along on the side streets that are next to Main Street. So that's going to be 100 west and 100 east, and they'll have better bike improvements. And we also want to improve the bike crossings along Main Street, so like across Main Street. So currently, the bike infrastructure it usually like cuts out before intersections. So once you get to the intersection, it's kind of it's very confusing about what you're supposed to do, and it's very unsafe. So we also want to improve bike crossings across Main Street. And as you can see from our title slide, that's a picture of one of the bike crossings we created in between on 300 North and Main Street. So we're going to look a little closer into the our bus network changes. So this is the map we created of the current bus network. Frequency is shown by the color. And what you can see is that we have moderate frequency with very spread coverage. And the issue is there's not a lot of crosstown coverage, and and the service is very spread out. So there's no very high frequency at any point in the system. And this is pretty typical for a college town. And for such a small town, the CVTD, which is the Cache Valley Transit District, has pretty decent ridership. I believe it's about an average of 7 people on any given bus, which allows it to get federal funding. But one of the issues is it's fully radial, and there's only about 3 buses per hour on Main Street. So if you look closely, a lot of the bus routes purposely diverge like off of Main Street to improve like coverage or reliability or decrease congestion. But what that does is that reduces access to a lot of the businesses along Main Street. And another big issue is that there's no buses after 8:30 p.m. or on Sundays at all. So you flip back and forth. Like, so you can kind of see what we wanted to change with the new bus network. So we've consolidated a lot of the routes along Main Street, and this is going to improve, take advantage of the new transit lanes. So this is going to improve frequency, efficiency, and reliability, and it's going to create a new high-capacity transit corridor for new sustainable development projects. And also, the route optimizations will create cost savings and allow for service improvements like late night service and improved weekend service. And as you can see, we're going to see about 7 to 9 buses per hour along Main Street, which is a big improvement. And another thing we're going to look at is bike infrastructure. So this is we're looking a little closer at what we mentioned earlier. As you can see, we have the parallel bike routes, but no bike routes along Main Street. And we also have improved bike crossings. You can see those purple dots. Those are going to be the protected bike crossings. And we can also see what we might look what we might be looking at if we create improved bike corridors along the parallel streets with these diagrams. So this is our diagram for Main Street and 400 North. So as you can see with the existing, there's a lot of lanes and there's no bus lanes, and you can see the wide shoulders on the side. And there's only pedestrian crossings on 3 sides of the intersection, and there are no refuge islands, and there's very poor non-car facilities. And you can see in our proposed, we have created medians. We have created those pedestrian refuge islands, which are going to be really helpful for pedestrians crossing the road. We replaced the shoulders with bus lanes, and we slightly changed lane configurations. So as you can see, for 400 North, we have reduced the number of lanes by 1, and we've changed some of the lane configurations. And we have not done anything to the other side of 400 North. So 300 North is going to be our big east-west bicyclist artery, right? So we don't want cyclists using 400 North or 200 North because there's going to be a lot of cars. It's going to be really dangerous. So we have squished them all into the street right in between them. And this crossing is only going to allow bikes to cross. So if you look closely, you can see we have put in a full median, a semi-permeable median, which will allow only bikes to cross. And the design is that the bikes will have bike lanes on the sides of the street until they get towards the intersection, where they transition to a median bikeway that's protected by concrete. And then there's going to be loop detectors at the intersection. And when the phase is started, then bicyclists will have a signal which allows them to go through the entire intersection. And if you look closely, you'll see that cars are only allowed to turn right, which is why we wanted to have the bikes in the middle. That will reduce the amount of reduce the possibility of collisions. And our third intersection here is Main Street and 200 North. So if you look at the full road network, you'll see that the traffic mostly comes from the west side of 200 North into the intersection. And you can see that we have improved the capacity by changing the lane configurations, by adding an extra left turn lane, because we saw from the traffic numbers that left turns were a lot of people are taking left turns. And on the east side of the intersection, we have reduced the number of lanes and created a median refuge island, and we have done the regular bus lanes in the shoulders and median refuge island for the Main Street. And our last intersection design has very minimal changes. So if you look closely, there was a very underused right slip lane, which created a really dangerous crossing for pedestrians, and we just simply removed that, because we only saw, like, from our numbers, we saw almost no people using the right turn lane, and you can right turn at other points. So we've just removed that, and that's going to create a little bit of improved pedestrian safety. And we're also going to see improved bus infrastructure. So we have a couple renders of what bus stops might look like. So this is your typical bus stop along Main Street. And below you can see our map of bus shelters and bus lanes. So the bus shelters are shown in orange, and the unsheltered stops are shown in gray. And you can see the bus lanes go from 1400 North all the way past Logan River to 700 South.
Next, we did a lot of data analysis on our designs, especially based on traffic projection analysis, just to make sure that these new designs will be able to support the volume of traffic that is demanded of them. So we started with transit ridership analysis. Our projected ridership by 2050 is a little more than 5 million annually and 14,000 daily. To get these numbers, we fit a linear regression model to historical data and use the slope of the regression as our expected average annual increase. So we expect an overall growth of 131% from 2000 to 2050, according to these numbers provided by Cache Valley Transit District. Now, our vehicle miles traveled analysis, again, use linear regression to project 1.5 billion vehicle miles traveled in 2050, and this is a 37.48% increase from the current 2023 vehicle miles traveled. Next, we use two different methods to predict bus passenger vehicle miles traveled, which will decrease the pressure on the roadways by diverting passengers onto buses rather than in their own cars. The first method uses data from UDOT, the Utah Department of Transportation, specifically regarding Cache County. We multiplied current passenger miles by the predicted ridership increase of 131%, and then multiplied that by a factor of 0.396 because residents of Logan, Utah make up 39.6% of the population of Cache County. And using this method, we reached an estimate of 2.6 million passenger vehicle miles traveled by 2050. The second method is based on data from Cache Valley Transit District, again multiplying the projected bus ridership, this time by the average trip length, again with a factor of 0.396 to get 6.6 million bus vehicle miles traveled. So obviously these numbers differ quite a bit, but we can see either way that if we can improve the bus network of Logan, we can drive bus vehicle miles traveled to an even higher share of overall vehicle miles traveled. And what this will mean for Logan is reduced traffic congestion, better environmental conditions, especially in regards to air quality from car pollution, and economic savings as more people take buses, and many other benefits. We also did some analysis of traffic at these specific intersections we were looking at. Here we have results of our simulations. In the upper figure, we have the current road network with current traffic conditions to serve as a point of comparison. You can see that there is either an A or a U rating at every intersection. In the lower figure, we have a simulation of the current road network, but with projected 2050 traffic volumes, essentially a no-build alternative. We expect to observe a 20% increase to local traffic, calculated by taking the ratio of current traffic volumes to projected 2050 traffic volumes in the Logan City Transportation Master Plan, and then applying that ratio to the baseline traffic study volume. So with the no-build plan, we can see that the level of service at 200 North and 400 North drops from an A to a B. This is actually not a very bad decrease. So although we did complete our level of service analysis and we definitely took that into account, the reason traffic is here in the presentation is simply because safety wound up being so much more important of a concern when it came to our design decisions. But now you can see the lower figure has changed to our future alternative that we have designed. And we anticipate that the implementation of an improved transit network and bike lanes can decrease traffic volumes to 70% of current traffic volumes. And if we apply this alleviation factor to the projected traffic increase, we actually see future traffic at only 84% of current traffic. And so obviously this means that the level of service at every intersection does not decrease. It is not made worse. And then lastly, there's obviously a concern that replacing the shoulders of a street, replacing the on-street parking with a bus lane would cause issues for local businesses. But frankly, the overall parking impact is minimal because there are no changes to off-street parking, and Logan already has a very robust system of different off-street parking very close to Main Street. And the number of on-street parking spaces removed is only about 70 to 90. You can see this map on the side where all off-street parking is highlighted in blue, and you can see that that vastly dwarfs the on-street parking that we have removed. In fact, depending on transit ridership, parking availability might even be slightly improved due to less demand for cars, and eliminating cars entering and exiting these on-street parking spaces on Main Street will actually improve the traffic flow overall. Thank you. That was the essence of our presentation, and we're now open to some Q&A.
Thank you so much, Austin and Danny. And if you haven't met me, I'm Terrence. I'm in charge for the section, and I'll be facilitating our questions for our presenters. So wanted to open it up to the audience. And if I hear crickets, I also got some questions of my own. So let's maybe give folks in the audience a chance to pipe up first.
Hi. I had a question about how you determine the reduction in traffic volume in response to increased transit ridership. I think you cited a 70% reduction in traffic volume in response to increases in transit ridership. I was just curious how you determined that metric.
Right. Nobody from that sub-team is here today, but based on the notes I got, I think they used, let me see if I can page back here. They used some numbers on transit ridership from Cache Valley Transit, predicting just general ridership increases, and then looked at those as a share of total vehicle miles traveled. Unfortunately, I didn't perform this analysis, and we don't have our full team here today, so I'm not sure I can fully speak to that.
So it's just basically analyzing past responses to transit. Okay, that makes sense.
Filling in the silence a little bit here. One of my questions was if you could speak a little bit to the choice of having shoulder running bus lanes as opposed to center running bus lanes. I understand this is sort of a main street, and so like most main streets, probably a lot of business frontage and stuff like that. Wondering if the considerations there.
We thought that shoulder running bus lanes would be less disruptive to pedestrians accessing them. And do you want to take this one, Danny?
Yeah,
All right.
I'll take this one. So the idea was with center running bus lanes, there's a lot of issues with like boarding platforms, right? And it's going to be a lot more capital cost upfront as compared to if we did shoulder running bus lanes. Sorry, did I say shoulder? Center running bus lanes have a lot of problems with upfront capital because you have to build a lot of concrete, right? You got to pour a lot of concrete. And you can't have like median islands unless you want to unless you want to buy new buses, right? So it's going to be a bit tricky to fit everything in. And there's also the problem with left turns, which there are a lot of on Main Street. So we thought it would be best to and cheapest and most efficient to just use the current shoulder. And by doing so, we can also we also won't be reducing the number of current car lanes. So hopefully there won't be too many complaints from the public. It's just a smaller, more feasible project overall if we use the shoulder bus lanes, I think.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I guess a follow-up to that question is, how are you treating the right turns in that scenario? Because you mentioned like left turn conflicts with the median running.
Yeah. We spoke. I detailed this at length in the report, but I didn't really mention it here. So the shoulder, as is often the case, the shoulder bus lane becomes a right turn lane. So cars will be able to merge into the right lane, and they'll have to turn right, but buses will be allowed to go continue forward through the intersection.
Good stuff. I don't want to keep. I don't want to keep hogging the floor. If anyone else want to hop in with a question, like I said, I'm happy to just keep going. Another one from me then. I was wondering if your analysis, like the scope of your analysis, included any considerations about the sort of like alternate routes, right? Like, you are sort of proposing a slightly decreased capacity on Main Street. And also, as you probably know, there's the debate over, should we be channeling like high volumes of through traffic on a Main Street that doubles as a state, or just highway. Yeah, just wondering if you sort of also looked into how vehicles might choose alternate routes besides Main Street in a scenario like this.
I don't believe this is a major concern because we did not actually decrease the capacity of Main Street. Every single through lane and turn lane still exists. In fact, we could argue, yeah, in fact, what is it? The only thing that was changed is that parts of the shoulder which are currently parking have been changed into bus lanes, but the actual capacity of the street for private auto traffic is not diminished. So I don't think we took route changes into account. We really did not want to cause our changes to Main Street to lead residents and aggressive private traffic onto other side streets. We wanted to keep Main Street main.
Hi, I had another question related to like the impacts on the people traveling through the area. So on your last slide, you're talking about off-street parking, how there's a lot of that available. I was curious what percentage of that off-street parking requires like a fee, and what percentage of it is free, if you guys, maybe not a specific percentage, but just maybe a gauge on, like, because some people might feel like, oh, I'm being burdened because I have to spend more money on parking when I used to be able to just park on the street. So I was just curious about that.
As far as I'm aware, I don't think there's any fees for parking anywhere in Logan. It's all surface parking. Um, so if you look closely, you can see that there's downtown Logan, which is like the blocks 200 North to about Center Street, a little past Center Street. There is the storefronts have huge parking lots behind them, so it's kind of a facade, right? Most people who go to the businesses use the off-street parking behind the business and walk up to the business from the back. And as far as I am aware, there's no fees whatsoever. So I don't think there's going to be any issues in terms of that.
That's pretty convenient, but I guess more common in Utah.
Like I said, I'm just gonna keep going if no one else pipes up. Y'all did a crash analysis. This one's actually from Sharman, who had to step out. But Sharman was wondering sort of your like the data sources for your collision analysis, which she really liked, and was also wondering if yeah, like just like what you knew about like how your data sources in turn got those collision reports, and how that might play a role in the accuracy.
I do not know that off the top of my head, but I can go check it in the citations of our report.
Yeah, and then maybe as a follow-up to that, just like wondering if you Austin, I think when you talked about the collision analysis, you talked a little bit about how the goal or the sort of the focus was on the fact that the number of injury collisions, especially fatal and severe, injury collisions was going down. Can you confirm if that's what you said, and if that was like a focus at all? And sort of
I was not necessarily going down, but just stable. So obviously we want to the intersection essentially, or just the intersections we studied. So they're not necessarily doing something right that is causing accidents to decrease, but there also isn't something terribly wrong that is causing accidents to increase. So we wanted to just generally make the intersection safer. But yeah, generally, aside from the no injury collisions, the other types of collision were more or less stable, keeping roughly the same numbers.
Would you say there was a focus on your part to reduce like not just intersection or sorry collision numbers, but also severity?
Yeah, so as you could, if you were throughout our project, we did a lot of traffic calming. We did a lot of improvements in terms of like curb bulbouts, right? We did pedestrian refuge islands. We did improved medians, semi-permeable medians. Those are all going to make people like slow down, right? Because if you look at the I think this 400 North, yeah, 400 North, a lot of it is front to rear, right? So that means a lot of people are just going too fast and just hitting the car in front of them. Which is really a lot due to the shape of the road, right? It's really straight and really wide. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add extra elements to it, and we're gonna reduce the lane width, and that is hopefully gonna reduce crash severity when it does happen.
And just to circle back around, I found our citation for the crash data. It is from the Utah Department of Public Safety, specifically their highway safety Utah crash summary dataset.
Cool.
So the naming suggests to me there's a possibility it could be skewed towards study of highways, but then again, there does seem to be a good amount of data on the surface roads on Main Street. So
For what it's worth, I'm not from Utah. I've never been for an extended period of time, so I'm not super familiar, but I feel like in general there's sort of a like if there's no injury, no of any kind, just a fender bender, the chances that gets reported 50-50, right? Like maybe nothing's really wrong and you just kind of go about your way. But on the other hand, if someone's bleeding, probably good chance that gets reported. I've talked a lot. Anyone else in the audience have any questions for Austin or Danny? Andrew,
Hey,
I
I've
see you.
got a question. Yeah, hi. I was just wondering about the traffic speeds on the roadway, what the speed limit's signed for, and whether the crash data indicated whether speed had anything to do with the occurrences out there.
there is speed data in the data set, and I do not know if our team analyzed it.
The current speed limit, I think, is 45, right? 45. We were there. I believe it's 45, which is pretty high. And I thought so. When we were there, we got a little extra data, a little extra experience that we wouldn't have had just looking at numbers and looking at Google Maps. And we thought it is a pretty dangerous road. There's a lot of people driving very fast. It's very wide, very easy to speed. And there's even like pretty high posted speed limits. But I believe it is 45.
$45 is crazy on a downtown Main Street.
Well, you people like at a current point in time, at any given point in time, usually people can't travel 45. because there's always a decent amount of traffic. But when in other sections of the street outside of downtown, people do travel very fast.
This actually circles back to another argument in favor of shoulder bus lanes rather than center running bus lanes, because if you want to keep the same number of traffic lanes, you're essentially being given a question: do you want the traffic lanes in the center and the bus lanes on the side, or the bus lanes in the center and the traffic lanes on the side? And it is probably safer for infrequent buses traveling slower next to the sidewalk rather than having a constant flow of private traffic at 45 miles an hour. Let's be real, 55, if they're, driving the way most people do when you see a speed limit right next to the sidewalk. I think I'd prefer being next to a bus.
Well, I have a question.
Far away.
Did you guys calculate the intersection collision rate?
Well, let's see our intersection slides. We have a count per year. So, sort of. I believe in our full report, we actually have crashes also in rates by time of day and by day of week.
Well, just a little, and with regards to safety analysis, it's really important to understand the rate versus the frequency.
Okay, thank you.
Question, did you all get any information about how the traffic signals work along the corridor, like whether there is any signal coordination that's running?
As far as I'm aware, there's no signal coordination. It's just they just time it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just they all have separate timings. And our plan doesn't necessarily include time signals or any like sort of transit signal priority because we don't see it as fully necessary, but obviously it can be implemented in addition.
Sometimes that's a good way to get the speeds down, is if a corridor is coordinated at the speed limit and the speed limit is higher than what's desired, then coordinating at a lower speed limit is something to at a lower speed is something that you could consider.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Looks like there's one in the chat from Kimberly. What's the speed limit for the because you mentioned the 45. She was wondering what the speed limits for the roadways that the bike facilities will be proposed. All right, the speed limits on the roadways on which the bike facility.
Yeah.
There we go.
We didn't actually do much design in terms of the bike facilities because the project scope was more based on Main Street. We mostly gave our idea of what we would do if we were like in terms of bikes, right? Because some other we could have done bikes on the Main Street, so we made the decision to move them off, and we kind of said what we would do, but we didn't actually like plan out the entire thing. In terms of speed limits, I would probably say maybe 15. But especially on like a bike street, you shouldn't be governing the speed of traffic just with the speed limit because people don't always pay attention to that. And especially if there's like a non-protected bike lane, people we'll treat it just like an extra part of the lane and just continue to drive fast. So if we were to design a full design of the parallel streets, we probably include safety, roundabouts, bollards, probably some semi-permeable medians that are going to reduce the speed and not just using the speed limit.
Good stuff. Was road dieting Main Street, or taking away lanes considered or like even up for consideration as part of this project?
It was definitely considered. It was up for consideration, but first of all, we didn't really see it as necessary because there already is a extra shoulder in which we can put the bus lane. And also any like removal of lanes at all is gonna have that huge public backlash. So if we needed to, we would, but the fact that there is an extra shoulder there already that we can put a bus lane in, and we can put bike lanes on other sections, it's just, yeah, we just decided that it's not totally necessary.
Placement of bikes on parallel streets instead of onto Main Street itself was motivated more so by a desire to specifically separate Main Street private traffic at high speeds from bike traffic for their safety, rather than due to a lack of space available or anything like that.
I guess the follow-up is, like, can you think of a case for why maybe Main Street should be the one that's slowed down in favor of maybe not a residential side street for sure, but like Main Street, because it's has all these businesses, all this activity, that maybe there's also a case for Main Street to be sort of slowed down, like maybe not to like 15 miles an hour by any means, but considering that it's sort of the 45 is probably not a good speed for that kind of a environment.
Well, Main Street's already significantly wide. It's definitely already an arterial, and the streets on either side of it can't necessarily support increased traffic at higher speeds. It's something that would probably cause a lot of disruption to the existing side streets. Like you said, you can't just take a residential side street, increase the speed limit, and call it a day. Just in general, the streets. Logan's a small city, and frankly, aside from Main Street, the streets running parallel are not very well suited for high traffic volumes.
Makes sense. All right, I'm seeing 12:55. So maybe one last question for our presenters, if there is one.
I was kind of curious towards the scope of this project because it seems like you're able to tackle a wide range of things. So I was wondering if you could kind of go into more detail on what exactly your problem statement was and how you address the specific points within the prompt.
So the main idea of the prompt was we wanted to improve safety and capacity, right? At the given intersections. The way that we did that was by using bus lanes, right? So we thought that was the best way to improve capacity, but that ends up you can't really, the bus lanes by themselves are not useful. So we augmented the bus network around the bus lanes. We also created the bike facilities, which will also improve capacity because bikes will use up less space. But we did like create sort of a bike network. The thing that's shown here is a slightly altered version of the current planned bike network in Logan. But in terms of the scope, we kind of went a little bit out of the scope, but in terms of what we kind of thought of. But in terms of our design, we mostly stuck to the 3 intersections, and we also did the 300 north because we also thought that was important.
For what it's worth, the exact scope of the project given in the problem statement was a little bit vague. I believe they intended us to be able to go beyond the specific stated intersections if we wished. For instance, just reading out some exact words from the prompt. Student teams will prepare a document that shows the impacts of future traffic in the Central Valley of Cache County and contains recommended system improvements to mitigate the identified impacts. And also, we were asked to perform a detailed analysis for those 3 intersections given to us. But also, obviously, we cannot change intersections meaningfully without changing the streets that feed into them. So specifically, we were told to also develop a system of corridors within the city that would be able to support the future volumes of traffic. Once again, clearly expanding, while they want detailed analysis of specific intersections, clearly our scope is broader. We're intended to consider other parts of the city, and we believe we did so appropriately.
Yeah, it looks like you guys tackled basically all the different facets of transportation there. That was probably a good experience.
As a freshman, this was definitely a very good experience. I feel like I learned a lot, gained a lot of skills, and I'm already incredibly excited for next year.
Yeah, definitely want to echo that. You know, this is extremely impressive work, especially as both of your freshmen. Just very complete and very thorough. Yeah, my clock says 12:57. And so if there are no further questions, maybe I'll give a hand to Austin and Danny for their excellent work. And we'll call this our meeting. And yeah, I see Kimberly's message in the chat. Just want to commend both of you for your work on this project, especially this first year. It's very impressive. And I'm sure all of us in attendance feel the same way. So you should be proud.
Thank you so much for your kind words, and thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for gracing us with your presence, and thank you everyone in the audience for attending. Really appreciate everyone here to show support to our presenters. And thank you so much, and we'll see you back here in May. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.